are live, I think. Yes, awesome. All right, we'll wait a couple minutes to see if people join in. While we were waiting, I thought we'd start off with maybe like tell everybody your highs and lows of the week because it's already Thursday. So someone has to have something good and something bad. Amy, you're next to me. Why don't do you have any high or low?
Yeah, definitely. So a big high for us is in March of 2020, we were going to celebrate our 50th anniversary together at our yearly managers forum. And guess what? It was March 2020 and it got canceled. So I just finally rebooked my flight to Orlando to celebrate, in this case, our 52nd anniversary.
That's
so
awesome.
Flights to Florida in May. And,
Take it.
I'll take it right now when it's raining outside up here.
Yeah, seriously.
Nice. Where in Florida?
Disney World.
Nice.
Place on earth.
That's cool.
I was there in January and it was 86 degrees. I would question whether it was the happiest place on earth for my family on that hot January day, but my children don't do well in the heat.
Yeah.
Or my husband. That's awesome. I kind of had a unique week. So a high for work related is just getting started on hopefully what is going to be a major renovation for a corporate office and kind of a unique building that has no identity. And we are getting started and I'm super jazzed about some of the design ideas. And then something that I don't do every week, but I got to talk about construction with kindergartners yesterday, which was really
How was that?
It was good. It was good. I took in a small restaurant project, thinking that everybody could kind of relate to that. And it's a project that's just starting construction, so I was going to send the teacher photographs periodically so they could kind of see how it's coming to life. But it was good. I mean, it was, I love talking about construction, so it was easy. But we definitely had to, started with what bubble diagrams are, thinking that's probably right up the alley.
It's awesome.
Kayla, any high or low?
Yeah, so I have high. We took our entire company with spouses and whatnot to the Bruins game on Tuesday. So we got a box and it was super fun. We were on the very top floor, the new section there at the garden, and the food was awesome. The views were great, and it was really much needed, you know, for all of us just get together and kind of just.
It's probably been so long since you do that,
Yeah, it was awesome. So
fun.
That was my highlight.
Caitlin, any highlight?
Yeah, something similar. It wasn't the Bruins game, but we had our all-staff office meeting yesterday. We had some of our partners in from the other offices, so there was a great buzz and energy in the office. And then we had a happy hour. Some industry friends came in as well. So again, just a great day all around of seeing everybody and being together again.
That's awesome. You good? All right, I think we're good. We can jump in. So welcome everybody. So happy to have everybody here. We're going to talk about attracting and maintaining female talent in the AEC industry. My name is Lindsay Corsino. I'm an associate principal at Phase Zero Design. Today I'm joined by a truly inspiring panel of ladies, which I'm really excited to call my peers. I'll let them all introduce themselves. But if you guys have, on a side note though, just housekeeping, if anyone has any questions, you can put them in the chat on the side and we can answer them real time as we go. All right, ladies, let's jump in. Can you tell us who you are, where you're from, what you do, and then how you got interested into the AEC industry? Because it is a little unique for women. So love to hear all of your stories. So Amy, why don't you start?
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you again for including me on this panel today. Amy Blomeke with Langan. I'm a senior project manager and the Boston Geotechnical Group leader. Langan is a multidisciplinary firm. We're an engineering consultant firm that really provides ground and down services. So that's anything from civil, traffic, survey, landscape architecture, environmental, and geotechnical engineering. So I am a geotechnical engineer. That means I'm responsible for foundation and earthwork components of projects, and really that stems from field investigations to reports and eventually construction oversight. I entered the AEC space back in middle school. I told my dad I was going to be an architect, and he told me no. But he did say that I could be an engineer. But kidding aside, my dad, he's a mechanical engineer and always supported me in my interest of really finding out how things work. And then at the same time, my grandmother, fed and stocked my Lego set collection. So with those things kind of and those interests growing, I also was watching the Disney Channel, and that's when they started promoting this world of Imagineering. And I thought I wanted to be a roller coaster engineer. But then I went 1 week in Florida in July. My hair got out to here, and I was like, I can't be a roller coaster designer, but definitely stemmed my spur into civil engineering.
So cool. Robyn, why don't you go next?
My name's Robyn Kiernan. I work with Lindsay at Phase Zero Design. I am an associate principal as well. I'm on the architectural side, but I like to dabble in interiors as well. I have degrees in both. I focus most of my time on retail, mixed use, and of recent years, corporate interiors. I'm probably stronger on the project management side, but I refuse to give up the design side. So I kind of jump into that when I can. But really, I just, love all aspects of design. So similar to Amy, I kind of had a unique experience. My father is a property investor, owns a lot of property in Northern California, where I'm originally from. And I didn't go to summer camp like a lot of kids. I worked with my father on his property. So when I was 9 years old, I was laying, shingles on the roof or in crawl spaces, probably all, totally illegal now for child labor. Great exposure to construction and renovation, and I joke that I love new construction, but my passion is really renovation projects. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a renovation addict for my houses. But yeah, I love construction design, but I think my passion is really renovation.
Awesome. Kayla?
Yeah, so first of all, Lindsay, thank you for hosting me today. I'm honored to be a part of the panel and kind of, have a voice here on this platform. So my name's Kayla Nassar. I'm with AmCon. We're a construction manager. We service New England area. We're a family-owned and operated business, also a women-owned business, which we're extremely proud of. And I am extremely passionate about the construction industry. I think how I got into it was like Robyn and Amy. At a young age, I watched my father in the industry and, spent my school vacations on a plane traveling to his cool job site in Beverly Hills or uncool job site in the middle of Ohio, or singing country on the top of our lungs, traveling to Vermont to his next job site. So, I was truly I grew up with it. And soon realized that there was an opportunity because, being a woman, you can kind of leverage that unique ability to get ahead, which took a while, but I've loved it ever since. So.
Awesome. Caitlin?
Sure. Thanks again for having me. I'm excited to be here. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, Caitlyn Angelini, a partner and the director of code consulting at AKF Group. We're an MEP XP engineering firm with a number of integrated services, commissioning, low voltage, energy and infrastructure. Code consulting is one of them. So the way I got into the industry, I went to I went to engineering school not knowing what type of engineering I wanted to study. I always loved architecture and buildings and the way a space can transform your mood, your productivity, how the way you feel. And so I started out in civil engineering, focused on structural design. When I was a sophomore in college, I lost a cousin who was a volunteer firefighter while he was fighting a fire. So, as you can imagine, a tragic event like that raises a lot of questions. I can remember, studying the investigation report of the how that happened, why, and what. And at the time, I was at WPI, which is one of 3 schools in the nation that offers a fire protection program. So I decided to take the leap into the master's program, stay to complete my degree in fire protection engineering, and have really dedicated my career to trying to ensure that the buildings that we design and live and work in are safe.
Wow, that's so admirable. What a great story. All right, so, well, thanks again for you guys joining. I'm excited to hear all of your perspectives on women in the AEC industry. So let's start off with a fun one. What advice would you offer to men who are interested in furthering female representation in our industry? Anyone can jump in.
Nice, thanks. I'll jump in on this one. I'd say find at least one woman, but hopefully several that you can mentor. I think the key really does lie in senior leadership, both male and female, and we need to continue to promote more women leaders throughout the industry. Specifically at Langan, I am involved in a group, we call it Women at Langan, and we're fostering an atmosphere of support, mentorship, advocacy, really to empower women in their career and in their own personal success. And as a Boston office leader and as a member of the steering committee at Women at Langan, I recognize really the importance of walking the talk and making sure that senior leadership, male and female, are there promoting the same conversations so that we're maintaining this ongoing environment of inclusion. And so really just find women to help mentor, and hopefully more than one.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and just to comment on that, I think as a predominantly male dominated industry, like you said, Amy, most leaders are men, right? So, I would say to the men is use your position as power and, speak up and, create that path. But also too is get vulnerable because, there's this kind of bias out there that, it's this hard approach to business. But I think, with females is a different approach to be taken. Both male and female, but particularly female, with, it's like, get vulnerable. Let's find out, let's get personal. What's going on at home? What kind of flexibility do you need? Don't miss that doctor's appointment. Don't miss that soccer game. Because, it all comes down to trust. And if you can get vulnerable and use your voice, I think the results are surprising, or I know the results are surprising. People will want to work harder, and it will create that path for women to eventually enter that leadership role.
For sure.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Keeping it very simple, just engaging and getting to know your female staff, developing those relationships, understanding what their strengths are, what motivates them personally and professionally. And I think relationship building will just lead to ways of knowing how to better promote or advocate for those individuals. Really trying to get to know people to understand their potential and how they can help you as a firm succeed.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's important to make a seat at the table for a woman. You don't have to do a whole lot. If you open that door just the slightest bit, most women will lean into that and really take on more. And I think, and anybody who knows me knows I'm pretty aggressive, but I think it's hard to wedge your way into the table. But once given a seat, the voice that you can bring and the value you can bring. But unfortunately, a lot of times you have to wait for that invitation. So be open to that. Bring more women to the table. Let their voices be heard, and then they can, run with it and really become a resource that's going to help to the growth and development of your company.
So true. Okay. What are some of the most common barriers to entry that keep women from feeling walled off to pursuing a career in AEC, you think?
So I guess, I can comment on this. So I think a big piece, especially in the AEC and particularly I'm kind of on the construction side personally, but there's an institutional mindset that exists, right? And so, it's creating this gender bias across the industry from a branding perspective, right? That construction's dirty, or the stereotype that it is a male-led industry, which, again, goes back to these, like, you kind of categorize these traits as, you need to be aggressive or competitive or dominant or independent. But, I think that's a strong barrier to entry. It was for me, when I started to endeavor on my career. And so, again, how can we kind of lift men up to have a louder voice? I think this really has a big piece to the puzzle. And then, another kind of, I guess, barrier to entry would be just the social, like I said before, branding. You see, I said yesterday on another panel, Robyn, you had mentioned you were at a kindergarten. That's amazing, because it starts that young, right? It's like, how can we get women and females into the industry? My daughter was walking by a construction site. Now, mind you, my wife and I are both in construction. And she pointed at a construction and said, "Mama, that's where the boys are." And so It's like, she's 3.5, right? First of all, what did I do wrong? And second of all, that's the reality of the world that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
So that barrier to entry is starting at the meek age of 3. So what do we do about it?
Straight.
That's First, it starts at home, right? But
Exactly.
definitely at a young, we've got to start talking to these girls at a young age.
And just, as we were all introducing, everybody's saying, having somebody to look up to, and the representation is important side of this, and having a father that was in the industry and opening your eyes to something that maybe you wouldn't consider naturally, as you're going into, your educational programs. I look back at my education and my undergraduate program, I was one of 2 females. And then my graduate program, I was the only female. But I do look at the first concentration in geotechnical engineering, my professor was a woman. So maybe there was something different where she was teaching in a way that just hit me a little differently. I understood the material better, and I thought I was good at it. So again, having that representation and sharing her experiences kind of led me into this field. But I think, Kayla, what you were also saying is the key words of, this industry. You have to be aggressive, you have to be independent. But when stereotype, when you apply those same words to women, then the response typically is bossy, aggressive. I'll say it, bitchy.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that stereotype that goes along with that, to kind of, no, that's leadership, and making sure that our tone and how we're creating ourselves and our personal brand is promoted differently.
Yeah,
That's a good point.
you're walking a fine line, right? As a woman, you almost have opposing set of expectations, right? You're either the bossy, bitchy leader, or you're this, dominant, assertive, aggressive male leader. And so it's a tough balance to gain the acceptance across the board when you look at it that way.
No, I agree. For Lindsay obviously knows this. I mean, and I will share this, that a nickname that I've acquired is Prickly Dictator. And that is, I really help run the operations of our office in Massachusetts, and I am aggressive. I'm direct, but I'm actually, learning that I need to be empathetic and how to provide that support. But I do a lot of jobs. I'm busy, and so I'm very focus driven. And my biggest thing is, let's talk about a problem, but let's talk about a solution. Like let's not just go through the motions. How to get that outcome, and maybe that no nonsense attitude can become off as a prickly dictator. So me having that awareness. Okay, I need to be empathetic, but that's the perception, is because I'm trying to get us where we need to go, and sometimes I can be direct. That's the perception. So I've embraced it, but I've also learned that I need to be empathetic and supportive.
Yeah, I'd add just the stereotypes and the lack of mentors and role models are really, I think, I see as the biggest barrier to entry. But there are a lot of great organizations doing wonderful things. Professional Women in Construction, I'm active sit on the board there. I know NAWIC and a number of other organizations. But it's interesting to think, we've always talked about how young do we need to get in front of the student, like which population. We think college is a little too late. High school is a better target. Maybe it's middle school, and hey, maybe it's kindergarten. Maybe we need to, try to infiltrate ourselves and our message a lot younger than we think we do. So that's good feedback to hear, Kayla and Robyn, your experience.
Yeah, we're actually, a colleague of mine are partnering with our company to be actually working with girls in technology, which are high school girls that are interested in the AEC industry. And I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag, sorry on that one. But, as busy as I am, and I overcommit myself, but I couldn't not be involved with this, because providing insight into our industry to girls in high school, like at that point, that is providing that awareness to help them identify career paths. So I think it's so important that we take the time to do that. Because you're right, there's no age, there's no specific age of which we should be targeting people, but the sooner you can expose them to all of the avenues in this industry, women, men, it's an amazing opportunity to be a part of.
Just kind of continuing on the barriers of entries and challenges, what are some unique challenges that the industry presents to women in particular, or that women experience at a greater rate than your male colleagues? And how do you overcome those?
So, Lindsay, I think that there are a lot of unique challenges, right? I guess even just across all industries. But, in terms of just statistically speaking, you have women that just self-select out of the workforce, after being in it for 5 to 7 years. And you ask your question, why, right? And there's a unique challenge there, because females bear children, right? And they're usually the caretaker. So there's that unique challenge of, can I get my work done but also take care of my family? And my answer is yes. And Lindsay, you've helped me realize that over the past few years, because it's a tough role to play, kind of walk the walk, right? But it's you see that challenge of women not being able to get to that next level, right? You see them at the director level, but then the numbers are staggering. So it poses a big challenge, because I think there's social pressures, there's lack of confidence from a female side of things, risk aversion, right? I want to avoid the politics. I don't want to, be a, create the noise. and valuing your work-life balance and not having to feel the pressure. But, given those challenges, I think that flexibility is key, as a leader and a manager and just across this industry as a whole, for that matter, all industries. Let's get flexible. Like I said earlier, be intentional and get personal, because the more we can do that, it will allow women to overcome that challenge or that fear or the political fear, whatever it may be, because it is possible.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Kayla. Keep jumping in front.
Keep going. Yeah. Thanks. So I don't have children, so I can't speak to the complexity of maternity leave and balancing childcare needs and whatnot. But I just go back to the lack of mentors and role models here. We all know that we tend to connect best with people who are like us. And I think there's just a huge gap of mentorship opportunities from female leaders simply because there are too few. So I would encourage everyone to network internally and externally. You might not find the perfect fit of exactly your discipline or your career path, but there are wonderful mentors, men and women out there that I think can help you build your network and just you navigate a career in this industry.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. I mean, I'm on the architecture design side, which I think women are better represented in recent years. Ironically, I mean, you talked about, going to school mostly with men. My undergraduate degree from a very large university, interior design, was all women. Not a single man in our graduating class, which I think that was the first time ever, which was empowering because we just had a really great support network, at that age. But I think I've been fortunate to have strong women mentors and see that path. And in that regard, I'm blessed. But I think, like you said, you have to find the right person that's going to help you propel you forward. And I would say the person who actually helped me the most was a man, just making a seat at the table for me, getting me comfortable, coaching me. And I say to people, I still need to be coached. I think for our entire careers, we need to be coached on how to be the best version of ourselves. So constructive input from all angles is valuable. We're really just finding the right people that are going to support you on your path. Everybody's journey is different, and there's no one model fits all.
For sure.
Nice. And to kind of jump into that a little bit deeper, I feel, in so many cases, I've been talking to other women when they go into meetings or they're, applying for a new job or they're, working to get into a new space that they're not familiar with. They never feel like they're the expert in their field, even though they are. So whether you're going for a new job and the job posting, lists 10 bullets of things that are expected of you, women won't apply for that job because they don't think they've mastered, all 10 of the bullets. Whereas a guy would come in and apply to that same job, even if they only have, 48% of the skill sets that are listed. And, the mentor side of that, I was lucky enough to have, I was a male mentor that kind of shared the same mentality and drive and, saw the engineering world this kind of similar way that I do. And he kind of propelled me to always be looking forward and looking back and reassessing, heavily reassessing every 5 years and making sure where you're going is where you want to be. And if you don't think it is, what are the next opportunities to get you into the next space? And if you're not seeing that in where you are, what can you do to get there?
And Amy, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think years and years ago, I had gotten a job offer from, what I would consider a premier design firm. And I ended up declining the offer for various reasons. But something that definitely played into my consideration was, am I good enough to work for this firm? Am I going to be able to go and be successful? And I wouldn't say I necessarily struggle from a lack of confidence, but I think that was always in the back of my mind is, can I cut it here? Like, I didn't want to take a job that wasn't going to be a sustainable investing position for myself. And it was definitely something I factored into my consideration.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think it's something that should be actually talked about more. I talked to a woman yesterday that she said something that resonated with me. I actually repeated it again this morning on a call. It's like women have this innate, I guess, instinct to strive for perfection, right? So Amy, like you said, it's like if you have a list of 10 things and they have 9.5, they probably won't apply to the position, because, it's not, you need it all. And so, one of the suggestions that this woman had made was, you don't need to be perfect, right? It's like, no one's perfect. We're all going to make mistakes, and, we're still good enough, right? But embracing that voice and, I keep saying being intentional with, hey, look, we all make mistakes. That's how we're going to get ahead. But it's the lack of confidence, again, kind of like the social pressures, right? But your voice matters, and even if you're not perfect, it's okay.
Yeah, I think you guys all mentioned mentorship and apprenticeship, but how did that help you grow into the current position that you're in now?
So I'll chime in here. I can remember early in my career, a boss saying to me, Caitlyn, you're going to have to work harder than your male counterparts. He's like, it's not fair, but the industry is still very far behind. That was probably followed with a little pep talk, but just that statement has stayed with me throughout my career. I always have thought of that, and it's really what pushed me to work hard and to continue to drive. But I have another good story about a situation where I was managing a project, and the client asked that my boss attend the meeting with me. And of course, we want to appease the client. I took it personal as if, they don't consider me the expert. They need you there. So I had a very candid conversation, and we both agreed, this is my boss and I, at the time, that the best way he could support me in that situation was attend the meeting with me, let me be the lead, nod his head in agreement, verbalize, just so I had a chance, an opportunity to prove myself as the expert. And that support really helped me. And we kind of continued the relationship that way of in those situations, like it was really important for me to be seen as that technical leader and the expert on the project, and that, having the gray-haired or bald guy, however you want to say it, in the room, and we joke about that all the time here, and that they can be there. Their presence is important sometimes, but they're not the only ones who know what they're doing.
Well, so it's interesting, Caitlyn. I really appreciate that story, because there's a key piece to that's, if we are here to empower, it's having the ability and confidence to speak up to your boss, to say, hey, can you give me the reins, give right. me the stage, give me the space, trust me, and right. creating, having that dialogue, because if that dialogue never happened, you wouldn't have been given that opportunity, right? Which is the key piece, because that's extremely important.
I think it's also make it so people don't have to ask. See somebody who is looking for an opportunity, always be aware, and that you're sharing that limelight, giving other people the opportunity to even just have a little bit of ownership, like in presenting to a client. Be there to support them, but don't wait for them to ask. I'm a big believer in kind of propelling people forward, and I like to push people outside their comfort zone. I don't want to push them where they're going to fail, or it's going to be counterproductive. But pushing people, don't wait for that invitation. And I think women a lot of times will wait for that invitation, no fault of their own. Make that space for them. Give them those opportunities, and just start with a sliver. And if they're good at it, give them more and more and more, so they can grow and build that confidence, to then ask in the future.
So what words of wisdom do you guys have for girls or young women who are interested in a variety of careers available to them in the AEC space? Words of encouragement. Come into the industry.
I think definitely, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities and, a multitude of different careers, but the biggest thing that I've learned is just be yourself. People are going to appreciate working with you. When I walk onto a construction site, it's a completely different conversation with the site superintendent when we talk about his family and how he lights up differently versus coming into a space and kind of just always having that, work mindset on. So the fact that we're women, we integrate our personal life with our work life so fluidly. Whereas when a man can step onto a project site or come into the office, they can close the home door and open the office door. And being able to really just be yourself and have that fluidity makes you more personable and more fun to work with.
Yeah, it's a great point, actually, Amy. Because what I would say is like your voice matters, right? Speak up. And so what I've realized is when you do, or when I have, it's funny. People want to listen, right? And so, similarly to your superintendent story, it's almost a breath of fresh air for some men too. Is like, hey, I can't tell you how many times I've been told I'd rather do business with you than a man, right? And so you hear that and you say, wow, okay. It's just a different perspective. It's a different conversation. It's 90% personal and 10% business most times. And so when you can integrate both professional and personal, I think it brings a different perspective to the table that both men and women can appreciate.
I think it's also to be agile. Where I think Amy and both and Caitlyn talked about where they started in one path and then redirected. You don't have to start on the same path. The amazing thing about this industry is there's so many different avenues, even within engineering, within architecture, that you got to find the right path for you to be comfortable and build that confidence that realizing, okay, although I might like this, I'm better at that, or just be open to wherever the road leads you. Don't be rigid with it, because you might miss out on an opportunity that might be an amazing one for you.
That's a great piece of advice. I've heard so many incredible stories about women's entry into this industry, and they're not as linear as you would expect. The only other thing I would add here is not to be afraid to step outside of your comfort zone. There's some tremendous opportunities for women in this industry. And if you're listening and you don't have a mentor, feel free to DM me. I'm happy to connect. And even if you're not interested in engineering, I can try to help point to resources or other organizations, or even connect you to others who may be able to help, or just share stories. Always happy to help.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I think all of us are probably in that same boat too. How are you guys able to find your confidence in your career early on, and how do you find it now?
I think growing up, I was super shy. I didn't talk much, and now I'm in an engineering field where, theoretically, I'm not supposed to talk much. I just have to do math and things. But our field of consulting engineering, it's a seller doer atmosphere. So the aspect of I have to be able to do my job, but also convey the information to the project team and, develop the relationships with people that I'm working with. I think sports was a huge part of my life growing up, and that definitely built, you know, into my career. And when people ask like what's one of my key qualities of, as an engineer, I think it's building a team and building a team around me that can fill in the gaps of where I'm weak and gives me an opportunity to lift up others into positions of where they might not be. So just kind of bring that all back together. Sports are awesome. Go Bruins.
Yeah, I think it takes time and maturity to realize that you have strengths and weaknesses. And I think some people don't want to focus on the weaknesses, but I'm a big believer in embrace them, because the only way you're going to overcome that is find a resource that counters your strengths and weaknesses. I know you got to know who to go to. You can't do it all. I think as women, we try. And I've learned that I cannot be 100% to everyone all day, every day. You got to balance that. And having the resources and knowing who to go to for the best outcome is really the best advice I can give people. You gotta know who your people are, internally, externally, at home. You gotta find that support.
Mm-hmm.
For me, getting my PE license was paramount to building my confidence. So I'd encourage anyone, if there are credentials out there, to seek those out. I think it really validates your expertise. And then the simple interactions that I mentioned before, of making sure that you're comfortable asking for support, or the opportunity to lead when you need to. Following through on things you say you're going to, becoming a reliable resource. People will continue to come to you for those special projects, unique challenges, or internal initiatives, even job opportunities. Get involved outside of your own organization. You can build an incredible network that creates, future job opportunities or ways to collaborate on projects now. I've also been really lucky to have gone through a number of professional development programs. So if you're in the engineering space, the ACEC Odyssey Leadership Program is great. It's an opportunity to connect with others in the industry as well. And I just completed a 3-year leadership program within AKF, and the professional and personal development that I was given throughout that opportunity has really been critical to my success. So find a firm that invests in their people.
Yeah, definitely. I just, one last thing I'd kind of like to say here too is, I live by a few mottos in my life, and one of them is nothing changes if nothing changes. And so, going back to the whole I always say you want to get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? So by getting uncomfortable, you're changing and you're growing. And, I think that complacency doesn't breed advancement as we would like it to, right? So get yourself uncomfortable. Try to do one thing every day that makes you uncomfortable, whether it's calling that person you've meant to call for the past week, making your doctor's appointment that you've been just putting off for 3 weeks. It's just taking, as stupid as this may sound, but it's taking your monkeys out of your backpack, and just taking action, because that's going to propel your career more than anything.
I think it's also okay to not fail, but don't be afraid to fall off the bike. You can get back on. There's going to be bumps along the way. Don't be afraid to try something just because you don't feel comfortable with it. You don't know the answer. Ask the questions. Get comfortable doing it. It's not. I always tell people you're not going to feel different today or 3 months from today until you identify a path to get there. What are the stepping stones to get there? It's not going to happen on its own. You got to put it in motion.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions for these ladies, put it in the chat box and we will answer. But we do have a couple. Amanuda Everlard, sorry if I butchered that, asked Kayla, do you have any women that work in the trades as a construction firm? And what are you doing to recruit more tradeswomen?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as a construction manager is we hire out our subcontractors, and In terms of trades, it's very far and few between, and something that it should be and it will be a big focus for everybody in this industry, because not only for female, but the average age of a construction worker now is, I believe it's somewhere in the 40s. The average age of a construction worker in the trade, 15, 20 years ago was mid 20s. So we certainly need more people in general in the trades. But I personally don't see many. I mean, I've traveled to, I can travel to 10 different job sites. I'll maybe see one female, which, those job sites are filled between 20 to 50 people. So do the math. It's a great question. What are we doing to recruit women in the trades? It's tough. We're doing a lot more to recruit women in our corporate environment, in our company, as a woman-owned company. But the challenge remains the same. How do we get those women in the door? How do we get their resumes? It's still out. The verdict is still out. But just actually recently we've put together a mission statement for our DEI initiative and what our goals are, right? And so to measure ourselves against those goals, and get involved with other companies that share a similar mindset as we do, to promote that diverse culture, and support that diverse culture. So it's a work in progress, but really aligning yourself with what the mission is and how you're gonna achieve those goals.
Yeah, I spend a fair amount of time on construction sites, and you see some women. I remember many years ago, one of my first projects where I was actively overseeing the construction administration, and the framer foreman was a woman. And that, for somebody in their 20s, and it worked for mostly male counterparts in my company, to see that, I was so empowered. I mean, it wasn't directly in my industry or day to day, but I thought that was amazing. So I think sharing those stories and just making people aware that you can do anything you want. I mean, I think it's a pitch we've been telling girls a long time, but I think we need to be more specific and say, talk about specific jobs in the industry, not just open-ended, but say, oh, have you thought about doing this? Or, what if you liked doing X, Y, and Z, this might be a great opportunity. Talk about the specifics. Because I think a lot of times, unfortunately, the trades tend to be very family-oriented. That's been my experience, that people, if your father was a framer, you might go into that, or if your father was a mason, or your mom maybe. That tends to kind of follow a lot of family lineage. So open those doors. I don't think people realize the opportunities that are in the trades. I mean, on all honesty, you can make a ton of money, and I think people, not to go into it for the money, but I think that there are a lot more opportunities there, and to create a sustainable and viable career that we don't put enough emphasis on. We put a lot of emphasis on going to college, getting the degrees, getting the certificates, but there are so many equal opportunities in the field that I don't think we talk about enough.
Yeah, definitely. And so you make a great point, is, as college continues to catapult, the price of college continues to catapult, and, your return on your investment, I think that more and more we need to start talking about with our kids and our cousins and our families and our friends that, it's not about what college is my daughter or son going to. It's like just very recently, my nephew was staying the night at my house, and he was anxious about telling, his dad about his want to go into trade school. And it's like, I know that my brother was so excited to have that conversation, because he wanted him to, to do what he wanted to do and go into the trades, because it's a great career. And there is another path besides college. But we need to continue to have those conversations like we talked about earlier at a young age, and that, there is a path there, and there's great opportunities in the trades outside of college.
Continuing the exposure. I mean, we look at one thing, we're involved with ACE, which is a mentor program that is focused in high school age kids, exposing them to the engineering architecture fields. But it's the same idea of these technical schools and, exposing you at a younger age. I met a woman recently. She owns her own company. She owns an equipment manufacturing company. And now I see her on the History Channel of the Curse of Oak Island because she runs the, 10-foot diameter drilled shafts that they're trying to dig up the treasure that we all know isn't there. But that's another side story. But seeing that as a female representation on a large scale construction project, it's empowering.
Definitely.
We have one more question from the audience. Have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome? What do you do to overcome it? And what advice would you give to junior staff who might be experiencing it? The answer for me is yes, but I don't know how you guys feel.
Go ahead, Lindsay, share your perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like everyone experiences imposter syndrome. It's the fake it till you make it, right? But I think you just have to, in my opinion, you just have to be confident in the skills you do have and know that there's people around you that can help support you if you don't know something, and you're not out on a lifeboat by yourself. But seriously, I think every woman experiences at some point in their life, even being a mom. I mean, I am imposter syndrome being a mom. I have no idea what I'm doing. I would just hope for the best every day. But
it's funny, Lindsay. I sat in an interview. You reminded me of a story very recently. I interviewed a woman, and she said, geez, we were just kind of chatting, and she said, you suffer from imposter syndrome. I said, what is that? And she quickly explained what that was. So, you don't realize it as you kind of talk about yourself and where you've been, how you're getting there. And I walked out of that interview that day saying, okay, I learned something new, right? But also, geez, I've got to lift those shoulders back a little bit taller, because like you said, we all do it.
And I think the embracing the fake it till you make it, because I don't know if I'm ever going to make it. But I think you gotta know, okay, put on the front, but then behind the scenes, go get the information. So where you weren't confident or you didn't know what you were doing, next time you'll have the information to feel confident in that. So I think it's a good, okay, fake it till you make it, but then realize what you don't have, go find it, get it, and then next time you don't have to fake it. Because that's an opportunity to grow and have that self-awareness that you don't have all the information, you don't have all the answers, and we may or may not have them ever, and that's okay too. I think you've got to have some self-awareness there.
I think also you gotta trust your instincts too. I mean, more often than not, I think as females, we have pretty good instincts of which direction to go in. So I always trust my gut and go with what I think is right. And I think that's steered me in the right direction from imposter syndrome. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody still suffers from that, no matter what age you are. You don't have to be junior staff.
Personally, I thrive on learning opportunities and trying to find ways to improve myself personally and professionally, our workflow, our projects, everything, client engagement. So my advice would be to try to build the confidence, to not be afraid to ask questions. I don't see questions as a sign of weakness. In fact, I see the opposite. It shows that you have the confidence to speak up, you're engaged, and you're trying to learn, and you're trying to be a better employee or teammate, or spouse or mom or whatever it is. I love surrounding myself with people that I can learn from. So seek those opportunities, be a sponge. Don't be afraid to speak up and ask questions or ask for help where you need it.
I 100% agree. I
Mhm.
sometimes are afraid to ask the question. I would much rather you ask me the question and say you don't know how to do something, because then I can help you. If you say yes, 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 I got it, I worry that you don't get it, and then we're going to go down a path that might be bumpier versus we could have had a really smooth path and I could have helped guide you. So again, self-awareness. If you don't know something, there's no shame in that. Ask for help. Ask the questions. Know your resources. It's going to empower you to feel more comfortable, that confidence, and to grow, and then also to teach others. I mean, the one thing I think about our industry is we have to be constantly pushing up, pushing down. You've got to make sure that the knowledge you have gained, you need to share that with your counterparts, your peers, people who are working with you. It doesn't do anybody any good to hold on to that knowledge if we're not sharing and spreading it.
Yeah, and I think that's a big underlying responsibility of a leader. There's a difference between being a manager, but to truly be a leader, it's to share your knowledge, set the direction, leverage your team strengths, and motivate and inspire. Because without those things, you're not setting your team up for success.
Okay, one more. What should a woman do who is interested in joining the industry without an AEC educational background?
One of the things that we've said here a lot too is just the importance of certifications. There's so many training courses or additional informational sessions that just learning more about everything, it definitely helps, not only imposter syndrome but also growing in a field that maybe you don't have the traditional educational background in. I mean, I look at my education. I spent 6 years in college, but most of my career right now is sending emails and talking to people, and in that 6 years of college, nobody taught me how to be personable. It was all just very focused on the technical aspect. So I think we can go in any direction that we really set our mind to, as long as we're continuing to backfeed that knowledge basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think persistence is key. My advice would be, and this is kind of what I did. I didn't have a construction background. I called the place that I wanted to work for 11 months straight every single month, to the point that, when Libby, if you're listening, when she picked up the phone, she's just like, oh my God, okay, fine. And so, true story, but I got the opportunity. I wore an oversized suit that I should have never been wearing. And, I got the interview that I've been dying for a year. And he said, what do you know? I said, nothing, but I will work harder than everybody else around me to get there. And it's like, so be relentless, but be honest too. But be willing to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you gotta step outside that comfort zone. I mean, I remember when I moved to the Northeast when I was going to graduate school, I was shell shocked about how hard it was for me to find my first real job. I had internships. I felt like I went to a good school. I had a good, solid portfolio, but I was new to the Northeast, so it took me a long time to get traction. And I just remember the advice my mom said is, put your suit on, take your portfolio, and just walk into a firm. And that is what I did, and that is how I got my first job here in Boston many years ago, because they gave me an opportunity to talk.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to put on that brave face, and that was way outside my comfort zone, and it was a little bit of a bust to my ego that's what I had to do, but it opened up a door for me that I could have waited for a phone call, or I could put the plan in action myself, and I did.
Definitely.
Okay, so we'll end it. We're getting close to, or we are at 3, but I think this is such a good question. So what's next, guys? What is one action everyone watching could make today that will bring us all one step closer to gender equity in our industry? Is there any closing remarks you want to leave our audience with?
Just a reminder that representation matters, and for all the guys out there or other women in senior leadership roles, identify your rising leaders and become a mentor, and change is good.
Yes.
Be intentional.
For the women.
I think it's don't be afraid to have the hard conversations. I think, as Caitlyn said, or I'm sorry, as Kayla said, change isn't going to happen on its own. So sometimes you need to rip that Band-Aid off and have the discussions to make equality happen. I say it all the time. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again. That course isn't going to change naturally. Sometimes it needs a push. So don't be afraid to rip that Band-Aid off, just to kind of redirect a trajectory that might need to be redirected.
For the women in the room, I would focus on building your brand. Like Amy said earlier, don't be afraid to be yourself. Show your personality. It took me a while to open up. I was, I wanted so much for people to think of me as an expert, and to build that competency, I felt that I had to, take myself probably too seriously, and maybe not show the goofball inside of me that has actually helped me build relationships easier when I was just more comfortable in my own skin. I can't overemphasize networking enough, internally and externally. Say yes to the opportunities that are presented to you. Take the phone call. Raise your hand for a special initiative internally or a special project. Say yes to dinner or the after work event. Just try to be engaged above and beyond your day job. That's really what I think is going to set yourself apart and get you to, or propel your career. And then for the men in the room, thank you for showing up. Your presence is really important here. And the best piece of advice for you is just to engage with the female staff, build those relationships, and I think that those will pay off to all of you in the long term.
Well, thank you guys all so much. Thank everybody for watching our LinkedIn Live here, and thank you guys, all four of you, for joining us and talking about such an important topic in our industry. And I'm glad we got to close out Women's Month with you four. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it, and I'll see you all soon.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.